Okay, hello everybody. Hope you're all having a great evening, morning or afternoon, depending where you are. Well, today is just a short audio, basically to tell you that my latest book, my eighth book, which is called The Testaments of the 12 Patriarchs Insights by S.N. Strutt, that's me. Well, that'll be available at Amazon within a couple of days, this book. This book's amazing. I've told you in another audio that it's got an incredible cover with Joseph on the front, looking quite strong, very masculine. Some would even say a little bit fierce in his eyes, and it's got a beautiful woman half naked behind him in the background, and that of course is Potiphar's wife. And then it's got big pyramids outside his window, and it's got the faces of three of his older brethren to the sides of the picture. Very well done by the artist. The artist, by the way, is my daughter Suzanne Strutt. Really, she's doing a great job with her artwork. Fantastic. I know she's going to end up doing very great things with her artwork. So in her picture here, I mean, she's really outdone herself. You've got the Sphinx, and you've got the pyramids in the background, big pyramids, and you've got also Joseph has quite some amazing regalia in what he's wearing, detailed, very detailed. He has a special cup in his hand as well, and a special bracelet on his arm. And of course, a lot of people don't know that Joseph became Pharaoh for a season. Yes, he actually became Pharaoh because the old Pharaoh died. He entrusted the kingdom to Joseph while his younger son was growing up, and so that Joseph taught the son of Pharaoh till Pharaoh was old enough to become the Pharaoh. So for a while, Joseph was Pharaoh. That's an amazing thing. Imagine going from the position of being a 17-year-old boy sold into slavery by your 10 brothers and ended up in jail down in Egypt, accused of being very naughty with Potiphar's wife, when actually it was the other way around. Thus you've got Potiphar's wife in the background, the picture there. And when you read this book, The Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, you see how it really was for Joseph, and how that Potiphar's wife was a real temptress. My goodness gracious, she was just over the top, completely over the top. And yet Joseph had the godliness and the fortitude to withstand her, which I don't think most men could have done. And as a result of that, look how far he went. God knew he could trust Joseph through the most extreme trials imaginable. I mean, not only getting kicked out of your own country and kicked away from your father Jacob, torn away from his own family, was only 17, practically killed by his jealous 10 brothers. Of course, I know that the way Joseph behaved when he was 17 was not the best, but also he didn't deserve to be killed, or he didn't deserve to be sold as a slave. But as Joseph says in this book himself, look, it was all part of God's plan, as it does in the Bible too. It's the most amazing story of forgiveness. It's an incredible story. There's no way you can read this story without you being emotional about reading this book. You've got the testament of 12 different brothers, and to me I find it amazing that you have 12 sons that were born of 4 different wives, and yet for the most part they were very united. They stuck together, except that episode when Joseph was 17, when he was behaving very much out of place and was all cocky and arrogant, and that got him kicked out for his trouble. But apart from that, Joseph really was solid as a rock. That's why my daughter's painted in the way she has done, because he was very masculine, very good looking, exceptionally good looking, but very, very strong character and he had to withstand so many temptations and so many difficulties down there in Egypt. But he also had the gift of visions and dreams and insight, so much so that he told the Pharaoh his dreams, he interpreted them for him, and then he became next to Pharaoh, and eventually became Pharaoh for a season. So that is the history of Israel. Amazing, just amazing how it all started out with the patriarchs and their father Jacob also, who became Israel. It's a fantastic story. You don't want to miss reading my book on this one. I'll give a lot of insight into the Testament of 12 Patriarchs and set the record straight as to when was it actually written. You see, the problem you have today, when I've done research for all the Apocryphal books, of which this is my 7th actual Apocryphal book, you find out that the historians and modern skeptics, they like to change things around, especially about the dates, the times, stuff like that. And that is a nuisance, because what they don't like is you can prove things were written long before man's idea of history, man's idea of how things are. They're always trying to put science and history into little boxes, but it's very easy to prove they're wrong. And that's what I do with this book. I'll show you that this book was not written by some monks by the Essen sect in 100 BC, as reported by the Pharisees in the time of Jesus. No, it wasn't. It was rewritten then, like a lot of the other Apocryphal books. A lot of the Apocryphal books were written between 100 BC and 300 BC for one simple reason. They had the big library in Alexandria, the biggest library in the world. And that library, under the Greek government, Greek Empire, they'd pay people a lot of money for old manuscripts. So if you want to make some money, you just take an old manuscript over, and they made a copy of it, gave you back your old manuscript, and you made a lot of money. And that explains why the Apocryphal books were all dated somewhere between 100 and 300 BC. But that isn't their original dates. That was just when old manuscripts were copied by the Alexandria Library. That's the real truth of the matter. And then you find out that all these books, all these Apocryphal books, were written a long, long time ago, in ancient times. That's what makes it very interesting. And I'm convinced that the Testaments of 12 Patriarchs was written by the 12 Patriarchs themselves around 3,700 years ago, or 1700 BC. There are parts, like with other Apocryphal books, where you can tell somebody's added something here or there, or they've gotten too religious and used the letter of the law, and you can tell they've altered a few things. But it's very easy to see where they've altered things because they're a bit clumsy in their altering. Because in one verse they might say one thing, and they try to downplay that, but then in the very next chapter it talks about the same thing again, you know. So the people who try to alter these manuscripts, these documents, these Apocrypha manuscripts of the past, they were clumsy. They weren't very good at what they did. They obviously weren't inspired, didn't really know what they're up to. But they tried to alter certain things, especially time things, when it happened, you know. And that's the whole idea of my insights books, is to bring insights into what is the truth behind the Apocryphal books, who were they written by, when were they written, are they true, are they to be believed. I believe the Apocryphal books very much complement the Bible. They don't replace the Bible. They're very much part of the Bible. In fact, you find most of the Apocryphal books were in the Bible at some time or other, and many other masters in the Catholic Bible, the Orthodox Bible. 14 of them, the Apocryphal books, were taken out of the King James Version of the Bible in 1885 under nefarious excuses, one of them being that the books were not originally written in Hebrew but in Greek or some other language, only to be disproven at the Dead Sea Scrolls only some 60 years later, in 1948, I think it was, or 9, or was it 1947 maybe? Dead Sea Scrolls. Anyway, one of those mysterious years. And they found their Apocryphal Book, like the Book of Enoch. In what language? In Hebrew. Or parts of it. And so, when it comes to the truth, those who write the truth and tell the truth, there is always somebody trying to bury what they say, get rid of it, try and lie to the public, say it didn't happen, because they don't like the narrative and they don't like what it implies. Like, say you take the case of the Book of Enoch. Why was that hidden for 1,000 years by the Catholic Church? Because they didn't like that it talked about fallen angels. They didn't like the history of what the evil was and how it started before the flood. They didn't like it. They could be burned at the stake for having just the Book of Enoch for 1,000 years. Think of that. Anyway, this one's a different kettle of fish. The Testaments of the 12 Patriarchs was actually a very popular book in many circles until a few hundred years ago, and then sort of disappeared. I'm just bringing it back to life. My job with the Insights book is basically show people that the Apocryphal books are fantastic, they're dramatic, they're original, they're exciting, and this one, even more so than the other ones, the Testament of 12 Patriarchs, incredible. Because here you've got not just one writer, but you've got 12. It's just incredible, all put together in an amazing way. All I've done is to make it easy to understand, put a lot of Bible verses in there as cross-references, and to bring out some modern points as well. And what I would say to the women reading this book, don't be offended by some of these old-fashioned ideas of a couple of the brothers there, especially Reuben in the first chapter. Because some of these guys have had some bad experiences with women, and it shows in what they say. But I'd take it with a pinch of salt. Remember, it was written by guys 3,700 years ago. And in one of my other books, I explain why it was the way it was back then. But I won't go into that right now. But just to say, please do read this new book that's coming out at Amazon in a couple of days' time. You can also order the books from me if you want to, directly. Just write to me my email, which is stephenph.strutt at btinternet.com. Write to me and say you'd like to buy the books directly from me. I'll send them to you like I just did with someone else. Someone just bought 7 of my books. It's cheaper if you get it directly from me. It's easier for me, though, if you get it straight from Amazon, because I'm taking care of my wife. She's in a wheelchair. I'm a full-time carer. I can send books to people, but it's easier for me if people buy them from Amazon. So the book is coming out in on the 3rd of October. Please do get this one. I think you'll find exciting, interesting, and very original. It's just very, very different. People today are not as honest as these guys. These guys are totally honest. They said how it was. They admitted their mistakes and terrible mistakes and stuff. Not like where we are in modern times where nobody confesses anything. And you don't realize that it is in confessing your sins that you find mercy, the Bible says, you know. Well, these patriarchs knew that. They made terrible mistakes, but they confessed them and God forgave them. And it's just beautiful. So, I just encourage everybody, please do get my 8th book, The Testaments of 12 Patriarchs, Insights, which should be at Amazon by the 3rd of October. And I think you'll like the artwork on that, fantastic artwork by my daughter, Suzanne Strutt. You can find her on Facebook and on Twitter. So you can see a lot more of her art if you look for it. I'll put a reference on my website so you can find out where to find the artists and all her artwork. Well, that's enough from me for now. Have a great day, everybody.